At the end of the book of Genesis in the Bible, we hear about how Joseph had brought all his family to Egypt and how they were taken care of by the Egyptians, and it was a great ending to the book of Genesis. Well, as we enter into the book of Exodus, again found in the Old Testament, we see that the new king, or Pharaoh, has come into power, and he didn't know much about Joseph and the promises that the Egyptians made to Joseph and his family and the Israelites. Well, this new Pharaoh became very worried about the Israelites and thought at one point that the Israelites were so many people that they were going to take over the Egyptians and that the Egyptians were going to be slaves to the Israelites. And so he devised a plan to make them slaves over all of Israel. Well, while that was good for the Egyptians, it wasn't good for the Israelites. And what made things even worse, the Pharaoh came out with a law that said all the baby boys of the Israelites must be killed. I mean, that's terrible. That is a terrible thing for a ruler to do, is to mandate and make a law that all the baby boys of one particular group has to be killed. Well, that's what happened. It was terrible. Well, as terrible as this is, we have a mom who had a baby boy, and she chose to do something different with her son. So I want you to pause the video right now, read this story, and see what she chose to do, and see how God took care of her, even though she didn't know what was going to end up happening. So let's pause the video now, read the story, and answer these few questions, and when you're done, press play, and we'll continue from there. Now, this is a great story because Moses' mom took care of Moses. And even though she didn't know how it was all going to turn out, she did what was right. And God protected her. And actually, God is going to use Moses for a really big purpose in his life. And it was a great thing that Moses' mom did that. See, the bottom line of today's story is, you can do what you should even when you don't know what will happen next. Moses' mom didn't know what was going to happen next. But she chose to do this because that was better than having him killed. And God protected Moses. Again, because God's going to use Moses for a really big plan down the road. And we're going to see that in the future weeks. But God used him in a mighty way, and all because Moses' mom did what she should, even though she didn't know what was going to happen next. Hey, in the same way, we can do what's right, even when we don't know how it's going to play out, even when we don't know what's going to happen next. So I want to encourage you today that when you have a question of whether you should do what is right or whether you should do what is wrong, do what is right. Because when we do what is right, it gives us an opportunity to see how God works. So do what is right, pray to God that he would reveal something to you and help in that situation, and see what he does next. Because as we'll see with Moses, God does some great stuff when we do what we should, even when we don't know what's going to happen next. So do what you should this week and see what God does. All right, and as we wrap up, I want to introduce a new Bible verse we're going to look at for the next few weeks. Joshua 1:9. Be strong and brave. Do not be afraid. Do not lose hope. I am the Lord your God. I will be with you wherever you go. Moses' mom was strong and brave because she trusted God, and she knew that God was going to do something great with Moses. Be strong and brave this week. Do what you should, even when you don't know what's going to happen next. But do what you should and see what God can do, because God is with you, and God will be with that situation if we give it up to God and let him do what he can, and we'll do what we should. All right, so as we wrap up, I want to encourage you, if you have stories about how God's done great things when you've done what you should, share those in the comment section below. I would love to hear your stories, and I'd love to be thankful and rejoice with you because God has done something great. So remember, be strong and brave. God is with you. And do what you should, even though you don't know how it's going to play out and what's going to happen next. All right, everyone. Well, I hope you have a great rest of the week, and I'll see you next week with a whole new story. Have a great week, everyone.